Sorcerers! Josh here, taking advantage of a vacation day. Another announcement. After the pile on yesterday, we have more today. And this announcement is just as big and will fundamentally change how we play Sorcery in the future. And that's an important point that I'll get to at the end. Sorcery announced that they will now have in the game a little twist on the concept of a sideboard. It is called the collection. The collection is going to be 10 cards that you are going to have set aside outside of your deck, and certain cards in your deck will then allow you to access those 10 cards. Very interesting concept. Will it be worth it? And will 10 cards allow you to have a diverse enough diverse enough number of cards to justify including one of the cards in your spellbook or atlas that allows you to access those 10 cards? And for me, that is the big question. The 10 card limit, I should be clear, is only for competitive play. In casual play, it's your whole collection. So go nuts. It's definitely going to be worth it to include a card that can access your collection into your deck if you can access the whole thing. In competitive play, with it only being 10 cards, that's the question. Is that sacrifice in your spellbook or your atlas going to be worth accessing those 10 cards? If the competitive meta has 4 or 5 decks and there are 4 or 5 silver bullets for those decks, yeah, maybe it would make sense to include that card that accesses, those silver bullets, assuming that one single card can access all of them, which is not the case. So that's my big question initially. How effective is this going to be? Now, as the game grows, I think as the game grows, this mechanic becomes incredibly important. This early at the stage of the game, with only, once Gothic releases, 3 sets, I don't know if the card pool is going to be broad enough for people to be like, yeah, I'm going to sacrifice 1 or 2 places in my spell book, potentially even more, so that I can access these 10 cards in my collection. That's a big sacrifice, I think, in your spell book or your atlas. Your atlas especially, I think that's an even trickier question than the spell book. So early on, do I like it? Do I like the way it looks? Just initial impressions? Yeah, I think it's cool. It feels like Sorcery. This is Sorcery's way of doing this. I like that. Do I think it's going to be utilized extensively initially? I think it could fall either way. Depending upon what cards Gothic gives us, it may be, and what decks develop out of the new meta that Gothic will bring, then yes, potentially, it could be, well, oh yeah, there's enough cards here. We definitely, there's lots of specific cards that affect these specific decks within the competitive sphere. So, and this 1 or 2 cards will access these 3 or 4 cards in my collection to deal with some of those decks. Then yeah, I definitely think that it becomes something that is used quite a bit. But since we're talking about this, they did preview a whole bunch of Gothic cards, and I'm going to focus on just a few of those cards specific to my feelings about the new collection. So starting off, one of the cards that I really wanted to talk about, Toolbox. Toolbox, artifact, 2 mana. It's an exceptional. You can sacrifice it. Bearer may cast an ordinary spell from your collection. So, first off, let's read that. Bearer may cast. So, if a spellcaster minion is carrying this, they can access your collection to cast a spell. Very cool. I like that. I think it's good that they thought about that and made sure that it wasn't just limited to your avatar. I think that's great. But it's an exceptional to access an ordinary, and you've got to pay 2 mana for that access. Okay, so there's the first card that kind of starts, this is how these cards are kind of going to work. There's a bit of a price to get access to that collection. It's not like you can just get a card, sack it, you can pull whatever card you want. There are very specific ways to access it. As we can see, and there are many great ordinaries in Sorcery. So being able to access some different one that you have over there might be very useful. The next card that I want to talk about that they showed was Silver Bullet. Also an artifact, 2 mana, an elite. Bearer has tap, sacrifice, Silver Bullet. This unit may cast an exceptional spell from your collection. So again, we have that same wording, this unit, so they have made it a way so that other spellcaster minions can actually utilize the card. That's good. This one, though, adds the addition of whatever is doing this must tap. So you're paying 2 mana, you're tapping, and you're sacking the card to get access to a card, an exceptional spell in your collection. It's a big cost. Again, I think this is one of those things where we look at these cards now and we may think, is that worth it? It may be with Gothic, we haven't seen all the cards, but over time, as this mechanic expands, and when we have 10 sets down the road, I think many of these cards become more viable. I think utilizing the collection mechanic becomes much more important and much more involved. So that's where I'm kind of at with that. There was one other card that I wanted to talk about, and that was Erzatz Platz, which is an elite. It is a site, and you can play, when you play it, you put it into play, and then it just has the text. You can play an exceptional site from your collection here, banishing this site. So during your main phase, you can go snag an exceptional site out of your collection and replace that Erzatz Platz. Could be a nice little surprise depending on what, exceptionals you're talking about. That's probably not great. I was thinking Quagmire right off the top of my head, but Immobile is not is not what it was anymore. So is it as good? But there are plenty of other, exceptional sites that you may have tucked over there that have some serious utility. Not Free City anymore because Free City got hit so bad. Yeah. Lots of other things. So those 3 cards are, of the ones they revealed, those are the ones that I'm like, these have a lot of flexibility. And I think that's really going to be key. Some of the other cards they revealed don't have a lot of flexibility. Any card that a person is going to be placing in their spellbook or in their atlas needs a considerable amount of flexibility. I think that's going to be the key. That the card needs to be able to snag multiple different cards from that collection. If it's going for something very specific, I think those cards see much, much less play. But, maybe the card, there's going to be other cards that we haven't seen yet that have really killer additional abilities for being in the field that let you go snag something from your collection too. That could happen, and that would be very cool. I would like that mechanic as well. I think that would be neat. But overall, especially a card that's the sole purpose of the card, if its sole purpose lets you access your collection and it doesn't really do much else, then that card has to be very, very flexible and allow you to access as many of those 10 cards as possible. Again, we're talking about competitive play. Just as a reminder, if you're casual play, it can be everything. It can be your whole collection. If you want to go nuts, that's fine. But for competitive play, getting into those 10 cards, any cards that you're putting in your main spellbook or atlas, going to have a lot of flexibility to justify it. In addition to that, at the very end of that whole announcement, at the end, we've got this cool collection mechanic. Good news first, bad news last. That's how you do this, right? Officially, the final deck size for Sorcery. We have it. It will not change. I'm assuming final is final. Right? Final is final. Final deck size for Sorcery. 60 cards in your spellbook, 30 cards in your atlas. With the 10 cards in your collection, that is 100 cards. Assuming we're talking about competitive play. I think we should all be very, very, very happy that the Atlas stayed at 30 cards. When the big announcement happened that decks were going to 50-30, if I recall that video, and I didn't watch it before making this video, if I recall that video, I was very like, let's take a minute. This has been play tested. Let's see what it looks like before we go ham. And 50-30 has turned out to be wonderful. I know that there are some people that really like the 40-20 format, and they're having leagues and playing that and enjoying it. But I like 50-30. I think it is an enjoyable format. It allows for you to include more of the cool new cards that we're continuing to get with Sorcery. So going to 60 cards in the spellbook, more cool cards can be in my deck. And now, hey, there's a good little argument. We've got these cards that need to access your collection. There you go. You've got 10 extra cards in your spellbook, and maybe a couple of those could be this toolbox or this silver bullet. So you can go access the cards over there in your collection. Hey, look at that. Nice little coincidence. I don't think that's a coincidence. So, 60-30, that's it. Finalized deck size for Sorcery. Final, right? Chase. Final. 60-30. 100 cards. Lots of storage products out there are designed for 100 cards. I think that's solid. And I'm very, very happy the decision was made to stick to 30 sites in that atlas. 40, there's only 20 spots on the whole grid. So generally speaking, in a long game, you're only going to get 10 of your sites out. So you're only seeing a third of your atlas to begin with. So going to 40 where you'd only see a fourth, I think would have been a serious issue. So very happy they stuck with 30. Going to 60, again, I'm assuming this is what they play tested at was 60-30. And they must have found that 60-30, especially if they were using this collection mechanic. Maybe they weren't, but I would think they would. They'd have to test these cards. And, they found, that extra bump of 10 more spells lets you put in some of these collection cards, lets you add some of the cool new cards. You're not having to make a lot of sacrifices, a lot of cuts. Well, you're going to have to make some. We all know that. Working on decks, tinkering with decks, when a new set comes out, you're chopping up all sorts of stuff. But this does, give you 10 more cards, just freebies you can add to it. So I really like that. I'm very happy about it. So that's it. That's this whole video. Except for one thing I want to mention at the end. I have a concern about the collection. A concern that was not addressed in the article. Can the collection break rarity? Because when I look at a card like Silver Bullet that lets me go get an exceptional, does that mean I can effectively have 3 copies of Divine Healing in my spellbook? 2 copies of Silver Bullet in my spellbook? And 2 copies of Divine Healing in my collection? I would hope not. Because if that's the case, then the rarities are designed for a reason. This game is meant to be splashy with big twists and turns. If I can get 5 copies of an exceptional, yeah. So, let's hope some clarification comes out about, yes, the 100 cards that make up your deck, right? Your deck is your spellbook, your atlas, your collection. That is your deck. Rarity must be honored throughout your entire deck. That's my hope. I really don't want to go to a place where, and presumably, there's going to be a card that is a unique that lets you get a elite spell from your collection. That's highly likely. That's what they tend to do. So, let's hope that there's not a way to get, 3 elites, 3 of the same elites. 3 craterizes? Are you kidding me? 2 enough. 2 is bad enough. There's all sorts of cards. This just can be scary. 5 pudges? 5 pudges after the change to a mobile? No, that is such a bad day. No, I don't want to. No. So yeah, let's hope that that's kind of it. Oh, one last thing. I'm doing my first ever live tonight at 8 p.m. So if you want to join me, July, the 11th. July the 11th. It is the 11th. Yeah, it is the 11th. July the 11th, 8 p.m. I'm going to do a live. We're going to talk about all the rule changes. See what we can see. So if you want to hop in there, no guarantees. This is my first time. Who knows what I'll mess up. We'll see. Other than that, as always, oh, gosh dang it. The 60-30 isn't effective until Gothic. Very important point. 60-30 is not in effect until Gothic. So we are safe at Gen Con. Very important to say that. Gen Con, still 50-30. Very, yes, still 50-30 is the deck minimum. You can play 60-30. Be wild. Come to Gen Con with a 60-30 deck. Do it. Fine. You're going to get your hands on a new Dragon Lord, build a 60-30. Just be that person. That would be fantastic. But 60-30 deck size is not effective until Gothic releases. That's it for today. As always, keep on contesting the realm!